We built this shop. It's a 60 by 40 steel building, and we've done almost everything on our own. I'm going to break down the costs here of exactly what it cost us to get our steel building built out. I'm definitely going to do a video about the total cost of our entire build, because I'm sure people will wonder about that too. I had a comment about how much did it cost to build it. So I'm going to talk about getting it to the point where we had everything on the outside built so that the shop was up, what was included, and what that process was like. So I'm going to give you the details on exactly how much it cost us. First thing we got to talk about is our road. This is our beautiful gravel road, and when we first got started, we got a quote from a company who quoted us $4,800. They were originally going to do a 300-yard road that was going to wrap up. It was going to be less steep. We have about an 8% grade here at the bottom, and so the road excavator said, "Oh, you should build it around and make it longer because you'll have less of a grade if you do that." Because we wanted it to be so that we could have 2 RV spots up here, pull our RVs up without problem. But we decided to make it straight. We shortened the road quite a bit. It's about 100 yards long to get to the top, and then we have a driveway, and that's gravel. We have a site prep that has 2 RV spots on each one of our barn sides. So a spot over there that's actually hooked up to our 38-foot fifth wheel, which we lived in while we were building. And then we have another spot here on this side with full clean outs and everything. For all of this, we were quoted originally $4,800, which seems like a pretty good price. We shortened the road significantly, which caused less time for it to be done. However, the company that we contracted out did not communicate properly within the company, and so they ended up having more equipment that they brought in, which shortened the time. There was only still one operator. Anyways, it felt like it was really shady. They sent us a bill for $14,000, even though we had a shorter road with less time. I called back and negotiated with them because I felt like we were definitely getting ripped off, which we probably were. But we're in a very small town, and this was a very influential company. I didn't want them to give us a bad reputation with everybody else. And so I was able to get it down, and we ended up getting it down to $11,927 for our road and our site prep, which still seems high. I think if you're going to get anything done in your building or your property, make sure to get it written down in writing. Everybody signs it and make sure that everybody knows. So many times when you have contractors who are trying to get stuff done quickly and they're just asking questions and they say, "Oh yeah, that should be okay, it should be fine," don't just go off that. That's not okay, especially if it's not the owner of the company. They have to verify it. I made a whole video about the biggest mistakes that I made. You're gonna see these mistakes add up a lot. So be sure to watch that video too, but we'll continue on here. So now that we had the road done, 2 other things that we needed to have. We need to have our septic system in place so that we could get an electric permit to run our power. And then we also needed to get that septic system installed so that we could also get our well and our water. So I'm sitting on our beautiful septic tank. You might notice it's not in the ground. It's because we have tons and tons of rock. That rock that is very shallow made it so that we needed to have a very long leach field. Now, the company that did our road also bid us out for the septic system. They bid us at $46,000. I'll show a screenshot of that. That was insanely expensive, and I'm so glad that we had the experience with the road with them so that they didn't actually start work on our septic system, because it would have been extremely expensive and we wouldn't have been able to afford it. Now, we had a concrete company that also did septic systems. They bid us out at $5,000 for a standard system. They came out, did perk test, and found that we would have to have a much longer leach field than expected. So with all that, they had to not only put the system above ground, we also had to bring rock in to cover our drain lines, and then we also had to bring in topsoil to cover our leach field. With all the rocks that we have, here's a pile of it that they excavated. You can see it's all rocks. If they would have put that into the leach field, it would have probably damaged the leach lines. So we couldn't have that. So they had to bring in topsoil, they had to bring in gravel. It was a lot more in terms of cost. So $5,000 was what they bid for a simple system. It was a complex system. It ended up being $19,500. I don't really fault them for that. That's not their problem or their fault. Based on how many days it took, it was a very long system, and I think we have 364 feet of leach line, which is huge for a 1,000-gallon tank. I think that was kind of just expected. It was going to be more expensive than we had planned for. So I don't think we got ripped off there, but I do know that it was more expensive than we were expecting. So $19,500. Once we had that, we also now could get our well permit, get our well drilled, and get our well house installed. Our septic system and cleanout system was kind of interesting too, because we ran futures inside the barn, but we also ran 2 full hookup cleanouts alongside both of the barn sides. So we have the ability to hook up 50 amp plus full drains on each side of the barn, and that's actually been really cool because we could have people come if they have RVs and things. So that's just a quick note too. So here's our well house. We actually built the well house out here instead of putting it inside the shop because we wanted to build another house. We're going to be building another house on top of the hill over here. Our shop, Barndo, is going to be a guest home eventually. We got a lot of plans for building out here, so if you're interested in homesteading or building and doing stuff like that, be sure to subscribe. Now with the well, you don't know how much it's going to cost. They tell you what it is per foot. I want to say we were at about $8 per foot. I can't remember exactly. I don't remember. I know the exact amount though. We spent $6,300 to get it drilled. Our well was at 260 feet. They included the casing in that, so we have steel casing that goes down, and they got everything ready, put the well head on and everything to the point where a well pump company could come out and then install a well pump, a pressure tank, and all of that stuff. We decided to put the well house here because we wanted to have it in a single location that we could run to the barn, plus we could also run to the house that we build in the future. And that's a lot of the things that we've built here. We're planning on doing that. The main reason for wanting to go steel was to have something that we could build relatively quickly and do mostly on our own. So that was kind of the thinking behind it. I also wanted to have a really functional shop, and steel buildings are great because you don't have to have center beams for the spans and support walls inside there. So it gives us a lot of open room inside there. I'll show you in just a minute. But with this well, we also had then to get our well pump installed, all of our lines and PEX and pressure tanks and systems and pressure switch and well pump and the actual pump controller, all that kind of stuff, so that we could then have water that comes out. There's not much room inside of our well house. It just is insulated. We have a 85-gallon pressure tank. That is great. We have a flow-wise controller. We have a 2.5 horsepower pump. The pressure is great on this. We also put a water softener in, but we had a problem with that when it froze. We didn't put the water softener in right away. Definitely want to test your water, by the way, if you have well water, just to find out what's in it. Looking at this though, one thing that I really wasn't expecting when I looked up and quoted everything for wells was that I thought that the pump and stuff was included in the price of the wells. When you look at estimates, most of the time it'll just tell you the cost to dig the well and drill the well rather. But what we ended up spending was $6,698.28 for our well pump, our well equipment, all the PEX pipe that goes out to the shop and run in there in 1-inch line. And they had to dig it down below the frost line and things. We also got a hydrant put out here. I'm also going to be running another hydrant to our garden. We're getting a new barn out here. So that's something to think about. I wasn't really expecting or planning on this. It was an extra expense. I don't know why I wasn't thinking of it. I had never dealt with wells before, so it just was my own ignorance. So $6,698.20 or 28 cents was the additional cost to get all the equipment to get the well water out. Now we needed to have electricity to get that working, so let's talk about that. So the electrical was one section where we actually did really well. Reason being, we have this power line right here, right on the edge of our property. There's a power line all the way at the bottom of the hill. It's about 250 yards away from our house, very, very far. And so we're thankful that we didn't have to run down there, because we would have had to do either overhead lines or dig all the way up, and it would have been very expensive. I don't know if you know, but 2-inch conduit is extremely expensive. It's like $3 per foot. Copper is extremely expensive, and so when you get power on a property, they're going to have the power company or utility will have an allotment that they'll be able to give you so that they can establish a new power. I think it was $4,300 was the allotment that they are willing to spend before you have to start paying. And since we were so close, we actually didn't have to pay anything. There's a transformer up there. Let me see if I can show you. So we got transformer, there's a conduit coming down, and then my dad is an electrical contractor, and he actually gave us this 400 amp panel. I'll show you what's inside here. But going along with the theme of having our shop house as a guest house in the future, and then our main house will be over on top of the hill, is the plan anyways. We have a setup that allows for two 200 amp disconnects each direction, so that we can have a 200 amp panel for our barn and a 200 amp panel for our main house. And I think that's pretty cool. Right now I have it set up for back feeding. I'm going to take the panel cover off and show you everything inside there. So with this setup, by the way, I had it set up with my generator going into this 50 amp breaker right here, and I could turn off this disconnect. But we have the ability to put another 200 amp service going out of here, and that's going to go to the main house. Gave us this panel as a Christmas present, which was really nice. I don't know how much this 400 amp panel would cost. I know it would be expensive to have a professional electrician. My dad's a great electrician, but anyways, if you can wire it up yourself, that will save you money. And you know, our 200 amp panel, for example, was I think $130. So the panels aren't super expensive. I think it's just finding the right application for you and knowing what you're gonna do. Luckily, I know how to do electrical, and so that wasn't an expense for us, but it probably would be an expense for you that you're definitely gonna wanna budget for. So the last thing that we have here is our building, and our building we got as a kit. We bought it from Star State Steel. I actually talked to them. I think they're a great company. I'm going to have them on and do an interview with general questions about steel buildings, because I know that it's pretty popular right now, and I think it would be really, really helpful for you. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see that. It'll probably be up in the next couple of weeks here. So our steel building we got as a kit, and I priced out kits from a bunch of different companies, and the prices between companies was extremely different. The total price for our building was $37,662. That's 22 feet to the eaves, 40 feet wide by 60 feet long, with two 10-foot door openings, two man doors, or two entry doors, right? So we have a side door over here and a door in the front of the building, and all of the parts and components included in that. We also got 6-inch insulation included in that price. So we were quoted for a higher pitch, so the pitch of your roof is going to change the price pretty significantly. A 412 pitch was actually $3,000 more. I think 112 looks good. In my opinion, there's even flatter roofs that you can put on, but we wanted something that didn't look just like a warehouse. We wanted it to have a little bit of a roof angle to it, and so we went with that. In addition to that, right, so you're gonna have to have somebody to build it. We got quotes ranging from $38,000 to build up to and above I think $86,000. Talking about the concrete slab, we had to build the slab. We got our slab requirements from the steel building company. So we put 18-inch footings around the outside with a 4-inch slab on the middle. Our initial quote was $18,500 for that. In the mistakes video, I mentioned how the concrete company didn't fill in with enough gravel, so we ended up getting a much deeper slab, which ended up in overpour and overcost. And so we actually had a difference. So we had an overage of $4,800 instead of $18,000. We were at $22,800, and that definitely was not expected or planned. I think that probably should have renegotiated a bit with that company that did our slab. We're also working on having them do our septic, and so we're trying to get them to work with us. But having known that and doing that again, I would for sure make sure to get that in writing, that they only ordered a certain amount of concrete, that they fill it in enough, and that shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have been guesswork with respect to the overpour. So we had everything ready to go to get started working on putting up the building. We just needed to get additional equipment. We needed a man lift and a telehandler, and for those we had initially only booked those out for 1 week, because I thought it was only going to take 1 week for it to build. When I booked that out, I think it was $2,200 for the single week. We ended up using everything for 3 weeks, and the total cost for renting the equipment was $6,300. They also dropped off the equipment early and took a long time to come pick them up, and they tried to charge us for that extra time, which we ended up being able to negotiate away and not have to pay for it, because they dropped it off early and they didn't pick it up on the right days, and that wasn't our fault. So make sure that if they're trying to get you to pay extra time, that you don't do that, because it's not your fault. I would also make sure to explicitly get that in writing, that if they're going to drop it off early because they're doing other deliveries, they're not going to charge you or start that rental date. Then the last bit of things, so we had 3 weeks of building. We just had a lot of odds and ends too that we weren't necessarily expecting. Epoxy for putting our bolts in, bolts, drill bits, additional things, just kind of additional tools, straps, strapping stuff, ropes, you know, just all kinds of different things that we weren't necessarily expecting. And so at fuel for running our machines, that kind of stuff too. So in addition to all of those costs, I just put in an extra probably about $1,800. That's just an estimate, but those tubes of epoxy for your bolts, I think they're something like 98 bucks a piece, so they really add up quick. You know, drill bits and bits for, you know, putting in your screws, blades for your grinder to cut out holes, you know, all those kinds of things, they just really add up quickly. So if you can budget those in too, there's just going to be a little bit extra overage in things. Overall, building this on our own, we saved somewhere between $38,000 and $64,000 bucks, probably on the higher end, just because every single contractor we've had has come in over. That's likely a result of my management abilities rather than the result of more difficulty, in my opinion. So be sure to check out that video. I talk about the mistakes. I think though, if we had not subcontracted out each one of the trades, it would have been much more expensive. If we had a general contractor coming in and doing it all, plus that management fee, they got to get paid too. So if you can subcontract or do the work yourself, you're going to save a lot of money. That comes to the total, by the way. Our entire total for this entire build, if you're adding it up in your head, you know what it is. That's $113,060.27 for everything all added up. So that's a lot of money. At some point, I'm going to do a cost analysis and try to figure out how much it would have cost if I would have built this in wood, because that would just be interesting to me. I think that the shop is going to be a lot more functional. I'll take you inside there right now. So inside the shop, there's tons of room. It's a really great functional space. It's going to be an awesome shop and house. Right now we're finishing framing, not finishing framing, we're finishing drywalling upstairs while living in the downstairs, and it's going really well. I will definitely do a cost of everything else once I'm finished with everything. I think there's a key to success here when it comes to building. Number one, it's going to take more time than you expect, and likely it's going to cost more than you expect to. If there's anything I've learned, it's that prices are constantly going up for everything. That includes labor. So if you can do stuff yourself, you're going to save a lot of money, but you have to really give yourself some room in the budget for everything. And windows are more expensive, lumber's more expensive, copper's more expensive, everything's more expensive. So if you have any other questions, be sure to comment down below with any questions, and I'll make a video to answer those questions for you. And be sure to subscribe. We'll see you on the next video.